Mace The Dark Age isn't a good game in the classic sense. It has some huge glaring flaws and it's going to take a decent tolerance to get past them. I'd like to show this clip as an example of my thoughts in the game. For one point, I'm pretty frustrated. This combo is a pretty simple one and should have gone through regardless of the size difference. But at the other ends of things, I'm impressed with the game, especially with the hit detection. My general thoughts of the game is that it's a good game, but it's so frustrating because there's just a couple things that could have been polished to make this a truly great game, and it could have been the definitive fighting game for the N64. Mace was developed by Atari and published by Midway. The game shares several similarities with that of Midway's Mortal Kombat. For one, the game is unapologetically gory, having its own version of fatalities called executions. Blood produced from landing hits will stay on the arena until the next round, and during the loading screen, the heads of beaten opponents can be found on spikes near the bottom of the screen. Mace's story is based in the Middle Ages. As such, most of the fighters are warriors from their respective countries. Some, of course, are magical or just have no place of origin. The Scandinavians are Viking, the Japanese are samurais, and the Arabians wield scimitars. The game features a grand total of 16 playable characters, 4 being secretly unlocked. For the sake of those who are curious, I'll quickly go over the cheat codes to unlock all the characters. On the warning/copyright screen, simply move the N64 stick 2 times around in a circle and you will unlock Gar and Ichiro. Grendel can be unlocked by playing 4 matches, then holding start on the Executioner during the character select screen. Pojo, who's a Joe character, can be unlocked by performing Taria's execution, then holding start on her during the character select screen. Before we really get started here, I need to talk about a few things. Growing up, on my N64, I only had 2 games, Ocarina of Time and Mace The Dark Age. As such, I have a pretty big bias for this game. I've been playing it off and on regularly, and I usually spend about 15 to 20 minutes just having some fun once a week, I'd say. As such, I understand that I have a bias, which is why I invited 3 friends over to play the game. One who has some fighting game experience, one who's only played Smash Brothers, and one who has none. The one who has some fighting game experience thought the game was fine. The one who only played Smash really enjoyed the game and thought it had some good concepts but was a bit sloppy, and the one who has no fighting game experience did not like the game and thought it was extremely heavy and clunky. With that out of the way, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of the review. Mace The Dark Age has a surprising amount of story put into it, especially for an N64 fighting game. Every character has backstories, and not all of them are good guys, especially the mascot character Lord Demos, who's been in control for about 100 years, and who has been actively killing and hurting people. Every character has a good and bad ending depending on if you beat the final boss or if you lose somewhere in the tower. The bad endings can be in particular bad, some ending with suicide, some ending with torture, and some of course ending with forced murder. The game, graphically speaking, was top notch for its time. It was released in 1997, and here's the comparison of a few games that were released during the same time. Dark Rift, Mortal Kombat 4, and War Gods. None of these games look nearly as good, and that's because the game used some high quality mocap technology. It's part of the reason why when in a good map, the animations look incredibly smooth. Frame rate is for the most part pretty solid except for 2 stages. All Rashid's stage in general drops frames the moment you leave the center circle. Ragnar's drops frames when you're near the top hill, and on a lot of stages if you go in the hazardous water, it'll drop frames pretty quickly. Mace The Dark Age plays like a 2D fighter with some slight 3D fighter effects. The only thing that's really happening with the 3D arena is evades and hazards. The stages act as arenas with hazards surrounding them in a sort of pool-like fashion. Hitting the opponents off the stage does not act as a ring out, instead opting to deal tons of damage to the player. While this isn't instant death, it's pretty close to it since it's extremely easy to hit people back into the hazards. Characters like Ragnar take full effect of this by covering a huge amount of area with its projectile. There are 4 maps without hazards in it, and I wish there was a way to select them. This would really have helped the game since hazards can sometimes be really unfun. Some of these maps are pretty huge, like Koyasha's. A lot of the maps are actually pretty big, but it's the fact that the whole map's covered in a stage hazard which makes it unplayable. The music in this game is a sort of heavy metal grunge rock. It's unfortunately really compressed because that was one of the bigger problems with the Nintendo 64, which was space on the cartridges, but for all intents and purposes, it sort of fits the theme of the game and it's pretty enjoyable. The music is also kind of country based, so if you're in Scandinavia, you're going to hear wolves in the background, and you'll hear some Chinese instruments when you're playing on Koyashas and Xiaolong stage. For game modes, the game really only features about 3. There's the arcade, where you're pitted against computers. There's a practice mode, which is useful to varying degrees. If you're playing with Al-Rashid or the Executioner, there's specific problems involved with it. Al-Rashid's map, like said earlier, is so laggy it's not fun to practice on, and the Executioner's map is so full of hazards, there's hardly any room to practice. Lastly, the game features one-on-one competitive, so you can plug in a controller into the second and first slot, and you can hack away at each other. The motions the game uses to pull off specials are that of most fighting games. You've got your quarter circles, half circles, and charge movements, and etc. Though the N64 controller joystick is absolutely useless. It's too sensitive, and I found doing quarter circles will sometimes somehow cause my character to jump. That means Mace needs to be played strictly on the D-pad, unless you're willing to buy an expensive N64 arcade stick. The Arcade Shark stick is smooth and works well, but normally averages about $50 to $60 in price. I was lucky and I found mine for about $30, so if you're willing to shell out the cash, this can be a solution to that problem. I think I've done enough dancing around. Let's get into the real part of this review, which is the fighting. I mean, it is a fighting game after all. Combat feels slow yet incredibly fast all at the same time. This is due to its odd neutral game. Your normals that are usually used to start combos come out fast but have huge recovery times, meaning if you miss your attack or get dodged, you're most likely going to be punished. Your standard 5 to 8 hit combo will deal 1/3 of someone's health easily, and the combo inputs itself are normally fast paced. The problem arises when getting to that combo. Normals are fast coming out but often have long recoveries, opening you up for punishment. You have to get stuck in this weird dance of people invading in and out, trying to bait someone to throw out a normal so that they can dodge it and then punish. If you're lucky enough and you get your attack block, you can still perform your full combo and deal a ton of chip damage. Plus, mix-ups are often found within the combos, so you might be able to get off hits and reset back to normal. Projectiles don't fix that dance I was talking about earlier though. Projectiles usually have long windups and long recoveries, so performing them at even a mid-range will often result in you still getting punished. I would only say there's really 2 to 3 real zoning out characters. The Executioner only has 1 projectile, but it's just so much better than everyone else's because it comes out so quickly. The other would be Lord Demos, whose weapon is so big you can poke at a distance. Koyasha and Hell Knight can possibly be considered zone characters, though I would say Koyasha is more hit and run, and Hell Knight's more of an all-arounder. Specials are often used as combo extenders or finishers. Very few specials are viable at neutral unless being used to close distance or to perform a mix-up, which very few characters can do properly. Have you kinda caught my gist? This game suffers from a list of very unsafe moves that promotes a defensive style of play. Only a few characters have good real mix options, so the cast of good characters gets slimmed down very quickly. And again, there never was and probably never will be a competitive scene. The normal move speed is incredibly slow, so the game promotes constant use of the dash. I believe a lot of players don't enjoy this game because of the combination of the dash and the slow normals. A lot of people don't understand how to use the dash or use the dash in an incorrect way. That way would be double-clicking in a direction, when instead you could use the shoulder buttons, but I don't think a lot of players honestly understand that this even exists. Players who don't know the game are often inclined to use button mashing. Button mashing in this game isn't as good as in other games. What I mean is that every combo requires specific timing. Even your normals require specific timing. Combos seem incredibly difficult at first, but are pretty easy once you understand the mechanics of the game. Every character has 2 sets of 3-hit normals. There's a kick, strong, and quick button. Most characters have variations of those 3 buttons that perform a 3-hit combo. In Ragnar's case, he has a strong, quick combo, and he has a quick, strong, and then quick plus strong pressed at the same time. Every character's different combos work to varying degrees, but the way to continue a combo is to add in specials. Most combos will include 2 to 3 specials and then a standalone special at the end for a finisher. Landing your finisher is normally pretty important because if you don't, then you're going to get punished. When viewing the game this way, the combos seem actually pretty simple. You use your best normal to start the combo, then you throw in a couple specials which are just timing based, and then you make sure you're throwing your finisher to reset back the neutral. It's getting to that point that takes a lot of time, and since the practice mode is varied, it requires a lot of practice on the AI. Mix in that weird dancing neutral game, and what you have is a bunch of players dashing around trying to land their one normal that will start off their big combo. Some characters' combos are so good, they'll fling you straight into hazards, and then they've just won the round. I've experienced defensive matches that last 60 seconds easily, and I've experienced many aggressive matches which end in 7 seconds. All this seems great, but I'm coming at this from the point of view of several years of experience. I haven't personally fought anyone with this amount of practice put in, so a lot of what I'm saying is applied to the AI, which I'm glad to talk about today. This AI is incredibly good and might be one of the best I've ever experienced in a fighting game. If you've never touched a fighting game before and this is going to be your first experience, set it to easy, especially because I think this AI does a really good job of conditioning and teaching the player fighting game concepts. One of the big reasons why I really wanted to talk about this game and why I'm going to be giving this game a recommendation in the long run is due to the quality of this AI, and I think it's really underappreciated how much work probably went into this. The first 4 fights the game features are relatively easy. Tarja and Xiaolong will start to throw in longer combos compared to Koyasha and Mordosko, but one thing does have to be said for Xiaolong. He will try to zone you out. He'll go in, hit you, and then backflip backwards, and then try to zone you out with his long pole. But once you inevitably defeat Xiaolong, you'll make your way to the Executioner, and I think this is when you should pay close attention to his movements. He's primarily going for low attacks and is not afraid to throw projectiles out constantly. His blocking isn't super efficient, but he's also throwing out larger combos to make up for it. Lastly, he'll zone you out so he can throw more projectiles at you. He also does a really good job of displacing you, so if you're not used to playing on the right side of things, you're going to have to start getting used to it. It doesn't just stop here though. I remember when I was a child, most of my family got hard stopped by the next 2 characters. Me and my brother normally couldn't get past Namira, and while my dad couldn't get past Takashi. Namira is extra defensive and has a lot of moves that have varying times, so you have to really practice your defense here. I would also say since you're not going to be landing as many attacks on Namira compared to everyone else, you have to start perfecting your combos, normally getting off 4 to 5 hits at this point, or else you're just going to have a hard time pushing damage on her. Takeshi is extremely fast, probably the fastest character in the game, and is one of the few characters that has a low mix-up. One of his specials that comes out low is so fast it's hard to dodge, and it can lead into an easy 4-hit combo. The AI is not afraid to use this, even on easy difficulty. He also still keeps up his defense like Namira. What the game's trying to teach you at this point is to start to play defensive and punish his mistakes. He will throw out unsafe moves, so if you can capitalize on those moves, then you can push your damage, especially with your newfound 4 to 5 hit combos. I think putting Takeshi here was a bit of an incorrect decision. I think he should have been moved to the next position because he really does feel like a difficulty spike compared to the next character. Al-Rashid's really good to reacting to your moves, and he'll block most of your raw normals. A lot of what comes from Al-Rashid is learning to punish him properly. He throws out plenty of unsafe moves, and it's extremely easy to punish him. Ragnar, on the other hand, is the real test of how good your defense has gotten. Ragnar will throw plenty of mix-ups on you. He normally starts high and ends low, so if you aren't ready to block low, you're going to get absolutely stomped by him. He has so low armor, so if you do get a chance to punish him, you are going to deal a ton of damage to him. Once you get past Ragnar, it really feels like you have an understanding of the game, and you're probably going to be able to beat it. Lord Demos is very defensive and will take his time in punishing you, but if you do open yourself up, he will absolutely destroy you. He's hard to get hits in, and since he has a long range, you have to learn to get up close and be constantly aggressive. Characters with good mix-ups will have a better time with him. Characters like Mordos Cole and Al-Rashid are going to struggle. In my honest opinion, I feel like Grendel should have been the last boss. Stats-wise, he's so much better than everyone else in the game. He's incredibly fast, he has extremely high armor, and in 4 hits he can easily get half of your health off. His AI will punish your mistakes, even on easy, and I won't be surprised if a lot of people quit at this point. He has a lot of unique moves that aren't found anywhere else in the game, which is probably why he's a playable character. He also has a unique arena that you cannot get in any other way besides playing the AI. He has a goofy death animation once you beat him the second time, though it's really glitchy, especially with the replay. The final boss, Asmodeus, I think is a low point to an otherwise great high and great difficult AI. Asmodeus is unlike anything else you'll fight in the game. He's huge, he has a lot of attacks that come out extremely fast, and he has some moves that are unblockable. A lot of his attacks also come out as kind of deceiving. His punch with his big arms actually hits low, and those tiny arms he has on the side of him that look really goofy actually hit high. It's kind of contradicting, honestly. His input reading is absolutely insane. Now I understand why input reading exists. It's so that the AI doesn't get absolutely destroyed by players that are playing incredibly aggressive, though there is an extent in which I'll accept this. Asmodeus' input reading is so strong that the only way to beat him is to either do it a cheap way or by just constantly throwing out your biggest combo till something sticks. When it comes to cheap ways, any character with a dodging quick attack, Asmodeus has a really hard time struggling with. Simply throw it at the end of your combo, and you'll normally get a hit in, which will reset him. Some of the bigger characters with larger kicks can jump and kick backwards, and that'll normally hit him as well since he thinks he can get a hit in. Ragnar has this long jump that he can jump from safely, and then finish a combo and kick backwards. It's the most reliable way to beat him, and oftentimes if I'm frustrated, I will just switch to Ragnar to finish the fight. Now, there might be other ways to defeat him, but I honestly can't figure it out. One thing that can be said though is that his arena is the only arena with a straight ring out. He has this move where he picks you up and throws you, and it's not uncommon for him to pick you up and throw you off the arena. One thing I want to say is after you beat him and there's the ending cutscene, for some reason since your character is not on screen, the game thinks that you don't exist. You can input your specials constantly, and the sound effect from your special will play non-stop. It's pretty funny. After defeating Asmodeus, you'll get your character's good ending, or bad ending if you're a villain like the Executioner or Lord Deimos or Taria or something like that. After that, you'll have a high score list with, if you have a memory card, you can save all your names and records, but all in all, it'll take about 15 minutes to 20 minutes to complete. If you can get yourself to a point where you can consistently beat this in 1 to 2 tries, I think you'll have a better grasp of fighting games. All in all, I think the developers have put a lot of love into this game. There's jokes hidden in the title screens, and there's a lot of little small details like you can pick up jars and throw it at your enemies, and the skulls in the top of the screen start to face the opponent when your health gets lower. If you've got a Nintendo 64 and you want to play a fighting game, I think this should be the top of your list, especially with Super Smash Bros. And Killer Instinct Gold. A lot of the rest of the competition really isn't that great. All in all, Mace The Dark Age is a good game that could have used for some more polish. If you give it a chance and a little bit of time, I'm sure you can enjoy the game as much as I have. Thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe.
Continue!